Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to help you get the most out of your grappling ability and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BjjBrick Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about waging war. We're going to go back kind of like what we were talking about last year, or last month, not last year.
So
the art of war.
So just for everybody's information, because I know that caught you off guard, we went from a weekly podcast to a monthly podcast.
Well, we started out as weekly, then we went monthly, and probably next year we're going to go yearly, or maybe semi-yearly, and then go yearly. But that's actually what we're talking about. Actually, Joe's just kidding. But we're doing Chapter 2 of The Art of War this week, Waging War. And most of the time, you can tell by this podcast that Joe and I are waging war against Byron. So we're going to have a great conversation and see where it goes from there.
Here we go. That's how we're going to start. We got a little war action going on.
We're already waging war. So
yeah, and so our plan is to, Jiu-Jitsu is a very strategic activity. The Art of War is basically a strategy guide of strategy guides, like how to plan things, how to be thoughtful with your decision making. So we're applying that to Jiu-Jitsu. If you've missed the first Chapter 1, its last episode, it would be 368, if my math is correct. And start today and go back and catch up. It's all pretty good. You could mix these episodes up, I believe. So, how are we doing this month, guys?
Oh, I'm ready to start some war. I'm doing good.
Joe, you been getting much training in?
I have not. I've been feeling really tired lately, and I went to the doctor's a week or so ago, got some blood work done, and turns out I'm alarmingly anemic. So I've got some tests scheduled, and
okay,
we'll see where that goes. But doctor wanted to know if I'd given blood the day before I did my blood work, which I had not. So,
man,
yeah. Anyway,
that's why you've been posting on Facebook about bloodletting.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Gary. Anyway, I'm looking forward to finding out why I've been so tired lately. And,
so, I'm glad you went in and got some blood work done, man. That's the thing that I know we'll go off a tangent before we get started on the episode. Guys neglect themselves so much, as far as they'll feel terrible, they'll have a pain, and a lot of men just want it to go away. I think I'm so glad you did that, Joe. So maybe it's not maybe it's just a weird thing, or maybe your body will process. But just the fact that you're willing to go see a doctor, it probably adds statistically years to your life. Like if there are 10 Joes and 5 of them see the doctor when they don't feel good and 5 of them don't, those 5 should live longer, I would think, statistically. So I'm glad you're getting yourself taken care of. And it's just a general message for any audience member. If something's not right with your body, you got to, we live in the modern day and age, take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a horribly alarming thing. I'm 90% confident that it's an ulcer, that I've got a bleed in my esophagus or something, because I've had some issues with acid reflux and vomiting blood recently. But that's a much easier fix than some of the other things that could be wrong. But yeah, you're right. If you're 54 years old and you're falling asleep on the couch at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, go see a doctor.
Yeah,
man. Well, Joe, I'm going to be praying for you.
I appreciate that, buddy.
Let us know. Keep us informed. As you know, we're always here for you if you need anything.
I appreciate that.
Joe, he would like to accept get well cards. He likes them drawn in like Crayola, and just hit me up and I'll get those sent right along to Joe.
I'm working on one right now, and so is my dog. So we should have a couple to Joe here quickly.
Well, I know which one of those is going to look better.
The paw print.
Teddy is actually smarter than me.
Yeah, draw Joe a get well card and send it to the Facebook messenger there. Well, we were hoping for the best there, Joe.
It's all good, but I have been missing being on the mats. I have not grappled much lately, and I'm glad that it looks like there's a solution to my problem.
Good.
Yep. What about your other problem, Joe, where you don't know what day it is?
That may be brain fog related to the first problem. I don't know.
Okay.
Shoot.
All right, Joe. Gary's teasing Joe because we got a little mixed up on our days for scheduling. We're all here. Some of us short notice, which is even more respectable because didn't plan on it. But here we are. We're talking about waging war. So this Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. Wrote a stretch, came up with, and it was passed down over generations verbally and on these I don't know what not scrolls, but like a weird form of like bamboo strips, I think. I studied this stuff a couple of years ago, and I was going to make an audiobook for this, and we have my old notes. Audiobook never materialized, and now it's episodes. So we're looking at my notes here for waging war, and there's just a note right at the beginning that kind of gets us off to the right start here. And so as we go through any of this stuff, it's definitely applies to literal combat and war. It will also apply towards Jiu-Jitsu, and then it will also apply just whatever you want to have in your life strategically, whether it be work or relationships or like obviously waging war is what you want to think about with relationships, but waging war is largely cost benefit analysis. So anyway, to start off, here's a note from somebody who has analyzed the text. It says, "He who wishes to fight first must count the cost, which prepares us for the discovery that the subject of this chapter is not what we might expect from the title. It's primarily a consideration of ways and means. Like, how are we going to make this happen?" So, guys, have you guys had a whole lot of thought about what Jiu-Jitsu costs and what the benefits of it are, like the spoils of war? What happens good from Jiu-Jitsu and what it costs you? Not just, we all think of like money, but there's other costs as well.
Yeah, there's, we talk about money, we talk about time. Time is money, time that you don't have with your family, that you don't have, you take away from work. Another cost is the toll it can take on your body. We've all been injured before. Well, I don't know about Byron, but Joe and I, we're on the injured list a lot. So,
Byron,
for me,
when Byron gets a little older like us, he'll
join the group. Yeah. But yeah, so those are the costs that I see. But you're asking about the benefits, and for me, the benefits far outweigh the cost. Some of the hidden costs, or hidden benefits, I guess. But I was talking to somebody about this today, that I like to try to train safe so I do not get hurt. And what I'm really afraid of is being out for a time being a long time. And I think that would really hurt my mental health. It's something, I only train twice a week, which is perfect for me. But if I couldn't train that 2 times a week, I think I'd be depressed. Even though I could find other stuff to take my time, the 4 hours of rolling I do every week is my favorite. Well, I can't say it's my favorite time because I like hanging out with my kids. But it's my favorite
Good save.
solo activity. Yeah. No, in all reality, I'd rather, go to, my kids' track meet or go hang out with my daughter or do stuff with them. But after that, I have to say Jiu-Jitsu is what keeps me grounded.
Yeah. And that's just a good looking at the costs, Are you missing things? Maybe sometimes, but you don't want to have it be where you go to like a that sort of, I don't know, track or whatever thing 1,000 times in a row, and jiu-jitsu none. Like there's that balance and that kind of that weight. And in a perfect world, you do jiu-jitsu in the morning, and then you go to the game in the afternoon, and then you dinner together. But sometimes it's just like we're busy people, and if you're able to have that balance, that's great. But sometimes it's just you have to make a decision, and not everything wins every time. I'm sure there are some people in the jiu-jitsu community who always pick jiu-jitsu, and that has a cost on those relationships. If you don't see it now, you'll see it later. But you do need to go to a birthday party if that's happening, or you know what I mean? It's really nice when they balance out and you could train earlier in the day or after the birthday thing or whatever. But sometimes the two just butt heads, and if this is the time that you're ramping up for some big tournament, okay, it looks like you're doing that. That's an important thing for you. And this is just a normal, regular training day that you've gone 5 times already this week. You might be missing one, and that's kind of the strategic element of a lot of this chapter is look at what this is going to cost you, over the course of, the day or the week or the year, your lifetime, and then try to get it to where the costs aren't as high. We're not just talking about money here, because that's just going to be there. But time is a big one. Like you guys joked about being injured, cost to your body. That this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think we're all in a little bit better shape by doing jiu-jitsu, bare minimum. But we all also pay a little bit of price as far as we get banged up sometimes. Some of us get, legitimate injuries that can haunt us for a while. I look at these guys that play these like real gi grip games. It's like they're tearing up their hands. You're going to be old with these hands. That's a cost. And you're not really paying that yet. I'm sure you feel it when you go home and your hands are sore and your fingers are all swollen, but you're going to continue to pay that when you're 80. Isn't that right, Gary?
I do get nervous about that. I can tell you both my wrists are pretty bad. My shoulders are getting worse all the time. Just even lifting my arms hurt. And, I do wonder what I'm going to be like. Is it going to affect me as worse as I get older? But, you're probably going to trash me for this one, Byron, but for me, I'm willing to pay the price because I really enjoy what I'm doing.
I think there's a balance, though, Gary. I do think that those of us that do this in our 50s and 60s, our shoulders, our hands, our wrists will suffer a little bit. But, man, your cardio and your overall level of fitness for a guy in his 50s is outstanding. And so I think there's a balance there, and I think you'll be glad that you're in good shape as far as your cardiovascular and all that stuff goes when you get in your 60s.
I'll have a heart that beats like a horse, but none of my limbs will work. I'll be like the Blob.
So, Gary, but I really just push you to look and I know you do, train in ways that don't cost you your body. How much inverted guard are you playing? How much stuff do you do where it's like I mentioned with the gi grips that just kill your fingers? I don't know what you're doing now that's causing the pain in your shoulders or what, but you just make those tweaks and try to do something different, and you do have. Okay, maybe this is it. You do a lot of Kimuras. My Kimuras are pretty bad, but when I try to do a Kimura, Gary, sometimes the escapes bother my shoulder. Like if I'm putting a Kimura on Joe, and he yanks down kind of quickly or violently to get his back on the mat, that hurts my shoulder a little bit. Does it hurt your shoulder when that happens, or do you just secure the body a little bit better than me? It doesn't happen.
If they posture a little bit, that can hurt my shoulders. But I try to control the posture with pressure on the shoulder, on my opponent's shoulder before going for the Kimura. Control the posture and get in position, and then take the arm home.
Yeah, take the arm. But I just think I don't do as many Kimuras because I feel that and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. And so I just kind of have gotten away from that.
I think it's a combination of Jiu-Jitsu. I really like to lift weights too. I don't lift heavy like I used to, but I think that doesn't help me a lot.
You mean like a light heavy?
I try to go heavy, but it's not heavy like what I used to lift.
Gary, what kind of lifts do you do for chest and shoulders?
We're trying to, Gary, just to let you know, we're trying to mimic your physique.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
That shouldn't be hard. And hard isn't the key word. Soft should be the key word. Chest, I'm really big into, I just use dumbbells. Barbell hurts my shoulders too much.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. I found the same thing to be true. When I use barbells, it locks my shoulders into one path, and that repetitive hurts. But when I do dumbbells, it allows me to find whatever's most comfortable that day, depending on where the cartilage is flared up.
Yeah, one day it's one shoulder, next day it's a different spot. It's I guess all good. I try to train around it. I try to put as least stress on it, warm up a lot more. But I do a lot of stretching. I do a lot of massaging with a lacrosse ball, stuff of that sort. And, I could do more. I could eat better. I could stretch. I bought a Theragun. Try to do a lot. But, it's no matter what, and Joe, I think you'll kind of agree when you're in your 50s and 54, and I mean, everybody's different, but we're not going to respond how we did before. And, I know I've talked about how I've really cut back my lifting, or not my lifting, my roll into 2 days a week, and it's done a lot better, give me time to recover between sessions.
What do you guys think about this? I've been thinking about this while you guys are talking, that with a lot of these things, the body, the relationship, the work, social life, family, and all those things, and you look at the cost and the benefit, I think that as you add more and more, you reach diminishing returns. So like competing 5 times a year is good, but competing 10 times isn't nearly twice as good. I mean, at 6, 7, for most people, you start to reach diminishing returns. And I think on the other side, the negatives are amplified. Like if your family can't accompany you to those tournaments, so you're taking time away from your family, 5 is bad. 7 might be twice as bad as 5. Your family misses you, you're gone. And same with your body. Like lifting weights 3 days a week might be good. 6 days a week is definitely not twice as good for old guys like us. Well, maybe for Gary, he's a machine, but for most people, you can't double your output and expect it to be twice as good.
I love what you're saying right there, Joe. I do think, I think when you're younger, you can get by with it. But I'm just looking at all three of us. I know Byron, you work a lot. You put a lot of time into this podcast. You've got a lot of stuff to do, family-wise with your wife and with your family and your wife's family. Joe, I know you're in the same boat, no pun intended, but I know you work 15 on, 15 off, traveling and, getting home, see your wife, see Sebastian. We all got a lot on our plates. And, I can think back to, the times when I was younger and, really didn't have much on my plate, besides going to work. And that was it. I remember I would get off work. I'd go straight to the YMCA to lift weights. I would go grab something to eat, and then I would go play basketball at the park from like 6 to 9. And I did that, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, I just partied. And I'd rinse and repeat every single day and, never ran into issues. But once your lack of sleep, stress of, paying your bills, do I have, my college fund, my retirement fund ready? I can think, here I am sitting in my basement. I can think of a couple years ago when my basement flooded, my fence got destroyed, my whole backyard. I know, Joe, you ran in that same boat. Again, no pun intended. And, I know it took you a long time to get everything in order from those hurricanes. And I bet you probably still got a couple things you're digging out from that. And trying to, keep your body in great shape, still do the things you love. It's a lot of stress. But I will say that the jiu-jitsu, going to see my friends when I train jiu-jitsu, really lowers that stress. Even though I'm pushing and pushing, it really resets me. It recharges me. I have fun. I start smiling. The endorphins start popping.
That's a good look at it, Gary. It's not, look at this time. What's the time cost? What's it cost? It's costing me time that I can't work because I'm on the mat. It's costing me family time. It's like, you listed a lot of good ones. But also the time is a good time. Much like you think of it, time on vacation is like a premium time. Hopefully you're really enjoying it. You're really taking stuff in. You're seeing something. You're enjoying experiences. Jiu-Jitsu is a very similar thing. It's like a premium. It's a fun time. It's a time that we look forward to every time. Same time a lot.
Byron, one of the things, though, about time is not all time is equal. If you're at home all the time and you're grumpy and ornery and your family can't stand to be around you, that time doesn't really count. I've heard dozens of guys that do jiu-jitsu say, sometimes my wife will tell me I just need to go get a roll in. I just need to go to class, because their time at home is better when they're physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, and jiu-jitsu helps them maintain that.
You preach, Joe. My wife has told me that, numerous times, and, I'm lucky to have a supportive wife, and you really do need a supportive, core network to survive. But like you said, when my wife sometimes sees me a little irritated or whatever, and she knows that if I do go and train, I'm going to come back in a different state of mind, and I feel a better person just from getting out there and doing it. And I do want to bring up something here too, and I thought this was really pretty cool. And you've mentioned it a lot, Byron. And somebody posted something on Facebook the other day, and I hate to say I can't even remember what it was, but it was something about jiu-jitsu's tough or something, or it goes back to, or Byron, it goes back to,
it says about enjoying the suck of jiu-jitsu or enjoying the.
Yeah. I love that your reply was, I think you said, I enjoy jiu-jitsu or whatever, and I remember one time somebody was talking about, I can't wait to get out of jiu-jitsu to take my aggressions out on somebody else. And you're like, I don't take my aggressions. I go and hang out with my buddies and work out hard. And that's how I like to work out. Everybody's different. We all have our own, thoughts and, goals of what we're doing. But I really loved how you replied to that. And I thought the same thing. I was like, man, that's me right there. Same as Byron.
Yeah, I was definitely not agreeing with the statement. I mean, it's just people. I don't know. I was being a little ornery, I guess, as well, because it was a friend that posted that, obviously, and it's just
you
like
ornery on it. You're giving your opinion, and we're not all the same individuals. But what I've always liked about you is you're never afraid to say something like that to somebody, and you've changed my thoughts on a lot of stuff, and you've criticized me on stuff that I've done, and I listened to you, and I was like, you're right, Byron, and that's what we just have to do. We just have to keep an open mind. We're all different, individuals, and don't be afraid to speak your mind. Maybe you can help somebody, and I can tell you guys have both helped me, along the way.
Well, thanks, Gary, and you've changed my mind on things as well. We grow together.
Yeah. Yep.
As we grow apart, sadly.
Hey, though, I want you to come to my funeral if I pass before, and if it's an open casket, Byron, please come over me.
That would be awesome.
That? Could you imagine Byron up there at the casket? He's got my arm twisted backwards, and and
you're assuming I have released the rear naked choke that got you killed, Gary. I mean, Gary, I always thought it would be funny to get like a C-level celebrity that you could just pay like $2 or $3 grand to, somebody who is like in a 70s or 80s sitcom, just to go to your funeral and just to be there, not really do anything, and they'll be like, who's that? That'd be a good way to just play a little prank on the family one last time.
Well, Byron, I personally, and Joe and I have talked about this, I think you're a C-level.
The alphabet is not long enough for my level.
Yeah, so I think you're already there. Joe and I, we're not even on the radar.
We're just part of your entourage, man.
Well, let's keep moving because it's getting weird.
We would say we're your bodyguards, but we'd get our asses whooped. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that bad word.
Whooped.
Trying to keep it clean.
Well, let's move on to the second line in this chapter. So the art of war is each line is basically numbered, and you can call them paragraphs, or they're more than just a sentence. So a paragraph is appropriate, I think, but it's written a bit strangely. It just says that if victory is long in coming, the men's weapons will grow dull, and their ardor will be dampened. Ardor is just like your excitement for what's happening will be dampened. And it's just advocating to be wary of, like, a long war. Their weapons that will get dull, their swords won't be as sharp, they'll be tired. If they're out there, you ask a lot for a long time, it's going to be, there's a cost to that. And I was thinking, how does this apply to Jiu-Jitsu? And I think that the stripe system, which has really, really come of age in the past, 10 or 15 years, Gary and I, my first stripe I ever got, I got to think to make sure, I think it was on my black belt. Like, we didn't do stripes. And I think that stripes are a really good thing to get you that little bit of an encouragement on that 2 years as a white belt, that 2 years as a blue belt, that I was a purple belt for, 7 or 8 years. Like, those stripes really, my wife has gotten some stripes on her white belt, and she really feels like she did something that day. And she's the same grappler as the day before, just with a stripe on her belt. But she's really like, it's different than me just saying, hey, you're rolling really good today. When Jake has given her a stripe, it's like, oh, I must be doing something okay. It's just a way, to look at the quote again. If victory is long in coming, the men's weapons will grow dull and their ardor will be dampened. Their attitude will change in a negative way. If there's 2 or 3 or more years between belts, you have to be cautious of your students having a little bit of a negative as far as like self-doubt comes in and maybe they can't get it. That blue belt blues is like, you get your blue belt, that took you a couple of years. Purple belt's so far away. Purple belt or blue belt, one stripe, that's not that far. And so I just think that system is helpful. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, we don't do stripes at my school.
You think it would help some students? I know it obviously wouldn't help all, but do you think some students would feel that pat on the back if they've been training for 15 months and still wearing that same exact belt they had before?
I was a purple belt with no stripes for 6 years.
So
no, I have differing thoughts on this, and I actually see some value to not having the stripes in that I've always felt that's one of the things Jiu-Jitsu teaches you. It teaches you so much more than how to fight. And one of the things that I've always thought it teaches you as how to persevere when you're not getting that pat on the back every couple of months. And I see your point too, Byron. I think both approaches have some value. And we live in a day and age where there's a half a dozen schools in every big city nowadays, and you can pick and choose what works for you. But I actually kind of still respect the being at one belt for 2 or 3 years and learning how to persevere through that.
You know, Joe, I like what you're saying about persevere through it. And I never thought about that, but I guess that is a lesson that you do learn in jiu-jitsu. And, you know, you guys would probably think that I wouldn't be a fan of stripes, but, you know, going back to kind of what I said, we're all unique individuals. And Byron, I liked your question. Do you think it would help? And I do think, you know, each one of us is different. You know, Joe has an opinion that, hey, you know, Joe's leaning towards no stripes. You know, I'm kind of in the middle. You know, I don't know where you're at, Byron, but we're all unique, and I think it would help some people. And actually, you know, I think it might almost help everybody. I mean, even a person like myself who doesn't care. I can't say I don't care, but I'm not a big belt person. You know, it's going to put a smile on your face. And if you put a smile on your face, you're probably going to be a little more excited to come the next day. And if we can put a smile on our face, we're doing well.
Yep. I don't know how you guys feel about uniformity in jiu-jitsu. We kind of seem to be moving that direction a little bit, but I also sort of appreciated before there were these big schools that had all these affiliate groups where every school was kind of different and the instructor did things the way he wanted. I know a guy here in Louisiana that does like a 3 or 4 belt system for white belt. Like once you get your blue belt, it's the same as every other jiu-jitsu school around. But instead of doing stripes at white belt, even for the adults, he's got like a multi-tier belt system. Kind of weird, but
hey, if it works.
Is he charging for those?
No. There's no testing. There's no charging. It's not a money-making scheme. It's more along the lines of what you were saying.
Yeah.
You can keep a guy at that white belt level for longer without discouraging them.
Yeah.
Because after 4 or 5 months, they get a promotion to the next belt and then a promotion. So it's not a money-making scheme. I think it's a way to keep them motivated. And then when they get blue belt, it goes along the normal. He does stripes too, so it's just 1 stripe, 2 stripes, so on once they get to their blue belt.
Yeah, that seems a little bit different, but
it is. It's very different.
I'm in the school of thought.
Is it if it works?
What was that?
I was going to say if it works, if it's working at his school.
Yeah.
It's, I kind of look at that's just like stripes. I mean, it's not the norm, but I see why he's doing it. He's doing it to reward and positive affirmation. And, we talk a lot about people dropping out at white belt. Maybe that could be one of the reasons. They don't feel like they're progressing enough because that belt is kind of the show all, the end all. And maybe with, stripes, maybe it would keep more people. They see they're getting closer to that next path to get to the blue belt.
And on a related note, guys, and I know we're kind of derailed here, but what are your thoughts on like promotion ceremonies? Because, we've been through a couple of different professors at the school I go to, and the last guy, he did stripes. So I have had 2 stripes once. I got 2 stripes on the same day on my blue belt. Those are the only 2 stripes I've ever had. But he also did like promotion days, and everybody invite their families and take pictures. And now that we've sort of gone back, I guess you'd say old school, and we don't do stripes, we also don't do promotion days. When I got my brown belt, it was just like, oh, good, Joe's in class today. Hey, everybody, let's and I got my brown belt. And how do you guys feel about that? You like big promotion days, Byron? Is that what Jake does?
That's tough. That's so we do have at Fox Fitness in Wichita, we have, I think it's twice a year, maybe 3-ish. I don't know. it's going to be, this day is when we're doing our belt promotions, and that's how we do it. It seems to work great. And sometimes like I could have my blue belt with 4 stripes, and I've been this for now a year, and I think I'm ready. Invite my family down, and nothing. Like, so, like that's kind of frustrating. Not only does it hurt to not get it, but like my whole family's here watching me not get this belt. But I do like the idea of sharing it with people. Like if somebody's there and their father and their kids are there watching them get their purple belt or whatever, there's a lot of value to watching that be tied around their waist. Like, I should do that too, and plant that seed, even if they don't do it now. And maybe that comes back in a few years, or maybe it comes back in 20 years. Like, my dad did this. I want to try it, so I'm all for sharing it with people. I do think it's definitely something worth celebrating. And we don't make a big deal about belts, so we try not to. Like, you got your belt. Congratulations. Now go get your butt kicked some more. Like, that's kind of what it's like. But it's really a token of how hard you've worked, not necessarily how good you are compared to everybody else. It's just man, you've worked really hard and you've come a long way. And like, I'm a black belt, so is Gary. Like, but we are the black belt versions of ourselves. I'm under no illusion that there are a number of purple belts and brown belts in Wichita that could tap me out. Like, any given roll, I'm going to get possibly tapped by some of these people. Like, that's just how it is. Like, they're younger, they're more athletic, they're stronger, they're training all the time, and like Gary said, he's training twice a week. Twice a week isn't a bad week for me. I'd like to train 3 or 4, but twice is not bad. I kind of derailed this myself, but it's just, and that's really just a business decision. And I think you just try to do what serves your customers the best. Having families show up and feeling like, I know coaches aren't going to be pushed into giving you a belt just because your family showed up. That doesn't work. Right. But it is disappointing to watch that happen occasionally. But it is cool to the more rare time, and it's becoming more frequent that somebody gets to that black belt level. Their spouse or their family is there for that. Like, that's kind of fun. But that's not nearly as often.
Yeah, I would think my coach, now he hasn't promoted a black belt yet, but I would imagine that would be treated a little differently. Going from purple belt to brown belt kind of feels like your 8th grade graduation or something.
So I thought you failed 8th grade.
But getting your black belt, that's like getting a PhD in Jiu-Jitsu or something. That's a big deal. So I guess I see those as being slightly different events.
Gary, any thoughts on those?
I'm just going to go back to, we're all unique individuals. Yeah. Myself, I don't like being in the spotlight. I would rather just somebody hand me a belt real quick and nobody even sees it. But I go to what you were bringing up, Byron. Man, I would, if my son, ever does jiu-jitsu, man, I'd love to be there for every time he gets a stripe. I'd probably be crying. If my daughter ever trained jiu-jitsu and, got stripes, I'd want to be there for each one. We're going to Sizzler when we're afterwards. We're going to celebrate.
And getting an appetizer.
Yeah. This is big time.
My overall thought is, what gets more people to train longer? And I think that the stripes probably get that done. It seems like it's a little bit softening some of the hard edges that we have in jiu-jitsu, as far as being that, Gary and I, being that white belt for a long time and just feel like, am I getting any better a lot of days? But I think more people would stick with it longer if you get the occasional little bit of encouragement that is a stripe. But the same can be said by your coach. Man, you did great today. That setup you did on the triangle choke, that was really sweet. How much is that similar to a stripe? It might be. So just the way we treat each other could be a big deal too.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And
now I've also heard coaches say, and I don't disagree with this at all, that if you're running a fairly large operation, that it really helps him to kind of remember and recall that where every different student is at.
good point.
So I don't necessarily discount that either.
Yeah, there's an old joke at Jake's place that a couple of the grapplers there had that fifth stripe because they had 4 on their belt. Maybe one fell off just because it's athletic tape, and it happens. And come on up here, Joe. I'm giving you another stripe. I have 4. Well, I'm not giving you another belt, so you're getting a stripe. Well, that's my 5th stripe.
You know, one thing I find funny is I've seen several people ask on forums online, like, my stripe fell off my belt. Is it appropriate for me to put it back on? Like the stripe itself has some sort of, like the piece of tape has some bit of magic or something. If your coach gave you 2 stripes, get a new belt if you want and put 2 new stripes on it. Your coach considers you to be a 2-stripe, whatever belt you are.
Yeah.
You know what'd be really cool, Joe, is whatever belt we put on, you go to that level. You know, like, let's say, you know, Byron's a black belt now, but I think it'd be cool if Byron could put on his old blue belt and he goes back to rolling like he did when he.
I feel like I roll like a blue belt quite a bit.
That
Gary.
would be fun.
I feel like when I'm rolling with the blue belt, I feel like I roll with the blue belt quite a bit. And then I go roll the purple belt. I feel like I'm at purple belt level. Like that's part of my goal is to have kind of a competitive round of give and take. And I've been doing that for so long. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think it's a fun thing, but I just kind of subconsciously adjust my level a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. That's funny, Gary. The belt controls you.
That would be cool. I would love to do that.
I'm gonna bump us along here because I thought this would be a quick episode. Looking at the 3rd paragraph here, he's talking about, you know, again, waging war still, but he said, again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. So he's just talking about the resources. So the money that the government's paying won't be equal to the strain or the cost. And I think this is perfect for what Joe mentioned earlier. Like, going to 5 tournaments is different than going to 10. And you may not enjoy those last 5 more than if you'd space the other 5 out over the course of the year. But those 5 or those 2 additional ones may have huge costs. The strain of going those extra times, you might be crossing off some important things off your calendar that you really wish you didn't miss. Yeah. Does that would make sense, guys? Did I read that well?
I think I think we can move on to number 4.
Hey, Byron and Joe, I got a quick story about this is something you shouldn't. So we were getting ready to have our 2nd kid, and I was training. You know, my wife was pretty far along. It was getting close, and my in-laws had already made it, drove from New York to visit, and you know, I felt really comfortable because he's a doctor there, so you know, I was like, okay, she's in good hands. And I remember in the middle of rolling, my buddy got a call, and he's like, hey, it's your wife calling. And my wife called and said her water broke and we need to get to the hospital. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll be there in a few minutes. And I just remember hanging up, and I was like, hey, let's get another round in. And I did another round. I was like, she's got a doctor there at home, we're okay. And it was probably not the smartest idea. So
does she know this?
Yeah, she knows this. You know, I'm not exactly sure, but I think I actually did 2 rounds, but I'm not sure.
You did get choked unconscious and you can't remember too well. That's funny.
I was like, you know, I didn't want to miss any training. And, you know, this messed up my training. But if I could do it all over again, I would have just dropped everything and left. That was probably not the smartest move. But, I mean, I was close, you know, not far away, but still probably not the smartest move.
But kind of what Joe was saying about the 5 tournaments versus 10 tournaments, 2 rounds versus, 10 rounds. There's a difference there in how late you're going to be.
But see, Gary, it worked out for you, and all of us have been doing this long enough, and we've all got spouses, and you figure it out as you go. But how much better off are you to train 2 times a week for 20 years? And how many guys do you know that train 4 or 5 times a week, and they just hit it so hard, and they train for 18 months, 36 months, and then their body fails, their relationship fails, something gives out, and they're done. I'd rather be the guy that does 2 times a week for 20 years.
Yeah, I see that happen all the time, and I'm with you. I'd rather be that guy. And, Byron knows, and you've heard my story, but, I was, getting burnt out at one point, and, I had to make a change. And, even as I've got older, I've made changes of less rolling, less rolling time. And it's kept me going. And my goal, I want to roll up until I pass. I don't want to, ever set a limit. I plan on rolling into my 70s. I plan on rolling into my 80s. And I want to keep doing it. I don't ever want to stop.
I'm with you, Gary. I want to hit.
It probably won't be the most competitive rolls, but
you just enjoy the activity. That's what we're doing at some point in time. Yep. We all have different phases of jiu-jitsu, and if you could, when I was at white belt and blue belt and into purple, I really wanted to win, to do well, to tap out somebody who was better than me. That was like the main thing. And now I'm more looking forward to having enjoyable time. I do want to perform well. I do want my body to execute jiu-jitsu at a level that is capable of, like the better levels of it that I can physically. But I want to have a good time doing it, and I want the people I'm training with to also enjoy the process. So I want to move on to the 5th paragraph here real quick because it's a famous one. It doesn't. I think we can get into the jiu-jitsu pretty easily here. He says, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. So we've all heard of making a quick, dumb decision. But just because you're taking a long time does not mean you're making a good decision. And I think this has to do with having, last time we talked about game plan, having that game plan. When you have a plan of attack, when I'm in Joe or Gary's system of jiu-jitsu and they're going from one attack to the next one to the next one, it seems like they're going lightning fast. And they don't have to take a long time to decide what they're going to do next. They know what they're going to do next. It's going to be this. And I think you get a kind of an artificial element of speed when you know what you're going to do next, and you know how I'm going to react. I'm either going to raise my hand up or down or whatever, and you have an answer for each one of those, and you know what that is. I think that kind of gives you that element of speed when you may not be the quickest person on the mat. So just cover it one more time. Though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. It shouldn't take you a long time to make a decision in jiu-jitsu. They should be pretty quick. And I can think about this at work. We sometimes will have to make a quick decision if there's, fire coming out of this building over here. Where's the best place to take the hose line? You may have to gather a little bit of information, but doesn't really help anybody to take a nice, long, slow decision-making process. It's better to start making a decision quicker than slower and getting that line where it needs to be or where it probably needs to be, and putting the fire out, so to speak. So just because someone's taking their time does not mean that they're being super clever about something. Makes sense, guys?
Yeah, in your line of business, in Joe's line of business, you guys really have to, think on your feet really, really quick to save lives and everything in a dire need.
Yeah, y'all heard about that lift boat that capsized here in Fushan last week?
No, I did not.
That's sad. Praying for
man. So a lift boat is a boat that it's basically a large square working platform, and when it's underway, it looks like it's got 3 big telephone poles 200 feet in the air. But what happens is those have feet on the bottom of them, and the poles are moved down by hydraulic pumps, and then the platform is lifted up above the water level, and they become high and dry work platforms for offshore oil rigs. So when they're underway, they're inherently unstable because they've got those long legs, 200 feet in the air. And man, we had a freak storm come through last week and capsized one of those lift boats. And a friend of mine was in Fushan on a boat, and he was listening to Channel 16, which is the Coast Guard hailing and distress frequency. And he said the lift boat never even got a mayday off. It happened so quick. So,
oh man,
Gary, you're right that things happen quick. And man, if you're not prepared ahead of time, it can be trouble. But anyway, thoughts and prayers to the guys on that boat. There was 18 guys on board, and I think so far they've only got 5 of them off live. The rest are probably perished. But
such a shame.
Yeah, things happen quick, and
yeah,
it just goes to show, though, a game plan ahead of time is so valuable.
Yeah, and practice. Thinking of our Allen Iverson practice.
We talk about practice,
but jiu-jitsu, you practice stuff over and over again on your boats, Joe. I know you're like you handle all the safety. I know you have your people practice over and over. Byron, you guys have to practice. I know you guys have downtime you're practicing, but what I also like that you guys do is you go around to buildings in your area, and you get to know the lay of the land. You get to know the turns, the spaces in there, and you guys are going to be better prepared. Like you were saying, Byron, like, do I put the hose on this side or that side? And, maybe you've came and checked out this building before, and it just rings into your head, and all the, the practice you've done, the muscle memory. We've had Daniel Coyle on the show, how the brain works. But that's going to be a big proponent of, acting quickly and making smart decisions. We don't have time to schedule a Zoom meeting and talk about it while the building's burning.
Yeah, once Zoom gets a little bit better, maybe, but not at this point. Here's a line. I'll read a little bit of 6 and 7 here out of The Art of War, Chapter 2. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. So long wars don't necessarily benefit a country. And I'm thinking of like self-defense. A longer fight doesn't necessarily benefit you than a shorter fight. Number 7, right after that, it is only one. Let me retry. It is only one who is thoroughly antiquated with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. So if you understand how bad war can be, then you're capable of understanding maybe the positives. And that's, I mean, you don't just go wage war to make people's lives miserable. Hopefully you're wanting to do something positive with that. But I do think that maybe this is, maybe push this into the self-defense realm. We know how ugly and how miserable fighting can be sometimes. We've all had those around us like, I can't believe I enjoy this. This just sucks. It's just going terribly for me. If you haven't had a round like that yet, you will someday. But just, that could happen on a street fight. You could just have it handed to you on the street fight and know how bad and how awful things can go. I think just being familiar with that gives us a good respect for how like how badly things can go quickly, Joe. Like you were saying, like it can happen very fast. And it just kind of gives us a reminder of what the evils of, what the evils of having to defend yourself could be. And it might not, obviously you're at risk of your own health and life. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that you may not, you can get sued in the court of law. You could get in trouble at your work. If as a firefighter, if I'm not getting in fights, on a regular basis, that's going to catch up with me. Maybe I get away with one, or self-defense is one. If I go get in a fight this week, get in a fight next week, get in a fight the week after that, I won't have a job if this keeps up.
Yeah, you definitely won't have a job because it's going to be hard to work when you've got beat up 3 weeks in a row.
I'll get kicked out of my academy as jiu-jitsu. Like, they won't want me around there either. Like, it's an antisocial behavior anyway. Like, I don't know. That's a good one, Gary. You got me. But just being familiar with how sometimes a roll can just go bad. Somebody who maybe you rolled with really well last week, it just they slip past your guard right there, and just in that 1 second you never could recover, and you got cross-faced for 4.5 minutes, and man, you wish you would have taken a break because you're exhausted. That was horrible. Like, those happen, and I imagine it's much quicker in a street fight if it does go bad, if you make that mistake.
Speaking of street fights, like,
As a professional,
since you started jiu-jitsu, have any of you guys got in that altercation? I can tell you I haven't.
I have not.
Yeah.
I've had some stuff at work, but it's less of a street fight and more of a controlling somebody who's having a situation. Gary,
Yeah.
you get some PCP, and you're going to want to fight everybody. We're going to get you kind of medically controlled, and then get you some help you need. But you can't just ask
I
the guy to go
don't
into
know, Byron. When I'm on PCP, it's all love and rainbows.
But Byron, let me ask you real quick. Do you feel, going from the self-defense aspect, do you feel that your jiu-jitsu training has helped you in those situations dealing with, somebody, hopped up on drugs?
Yes. That's
awesome.
That's
short.
Yes, absolutely.
I figured it was going to be yes, but it's neat to hear that, it has helped you in your job. And it's
one thing that's weird about it is the person, whether it's usually some sort of a substance, it could be alcohol or whatever, like also diabetic. Sometimes somebody having a diabetic episode, they get violent. And I remember we fought this guy we had to get an IV in him. So I don't put IVs in people, but I'm an EMT. But I'm holding the guy down. He's fighting us. He's like screaming and yelling, and his family's watching, and the paramedics get the IV in, and I'm holding him still, and they get that the IV in, it gets him going, and he just kind of like opens his eyes and looks at us like, takes a deep breath. Was I fighting? Like, yeah. And he apologized. Like, sorry, guys. It's like, yeah, we were all sweaty and stuff, but like that, I don't like that. Jiu-Jitsu made that a lot easier because he was a handful of a person.
You imagine the poor paramedic, like on his very first day, he just graduated from paramedic academy, and he's at his very first shift, and he's trying to put an IV in somebody that is fighting. That's got to be a rough one.
They can't.
That takes some talent.
Yeah,
that's talent.
If you can't hold that person on, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You know, Byron, I just want to say for all the people out there in a profession where they might encounter the same things that you do, knowing jiu-jitsu doesn't just make it easier for you, it makes it so much safer for the other individual.
Yes.
You can subdue them without having to throw punches and elbows and scramble. And, it's great that you do this, and it's good for your community, man.
Well, thanks, and I big advocate. We've got quite a bit of guys from the fire department that are training, and it's a fun way to cut loose after work, and you're also learning a skill. And I think that the guys that do train, I'm really glad that they're on the mats, not just for the betterment, but I enjoy training with them as well. So.
Yeah, it's nice to see first responders training. I know our buddy Richard. He just I saw a picture on Facebook that he just went. I think it might have been down to Texas for a law enforcement jiu-jitsu probably seminar or something, and I just thought that was pretty cool. And shout out to our buddy there, Richard.
Yeah, my buddy that does the multiple belt system at white belt. He's also been making some posts. I need to look into it some more. He's got to adopt a cop thing at his school.
Awesome.
And at the school I train at in Texas, we've got a 1 day a week free where law enforcement can come in on Wednesdays and train. It's a no-gi day. You don't need any equipment. Just come in either the noon or the evening class and train, and it doesn't cost anything.
Man, Joe, I love that idea. That's awesome. And being no-gi, too, where you don't need any special equipment, it's going to be a better chance to get more people in there.
Yeah. The hard thing is to get people in there.
Yeah. Yep, that's the hard part. But, shout out to people thinking outside the box, to Fernando coming up with that, ways to, as Joe said, it benefits the community. Like he was talking about Byron training and Byron's co-workers training, it makes Wichita a better place. Same thing with, Joe's school and Fernando giving free lessons. It's going to help Lake Jackson. It's going to help, the area there south of Houston and make it a better community and a safer community for everyone.
Good stuff. And yeah, definitely appreciate any policy like that opens up the doors and makes it easier for those that may need it, which is really everybody, but some may need it for their job and lives are on the line. I want to skip down to chapter or paragraph 15. He's talking about being far from home and having to deal with supply lines and kind of that they didn't have, if you believe it or not, Amazon Prime back then. They couldn't just order their stuff to be there the next day. And so if you can imagine having thousands of troops, hundreds of miles away from your own territory, he says 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own. And so what he's just saying is, like, it's really important if we're able to acquire things that will help us while we're like out on the road, So if just think about this from the thing we've all done as a road trip, if everywhere you eat, if you have to bring all the food from day one, that's one thing. But imagine if you're having to carry it on your back or on your horse. If you could get a meal here or there, from a place on the side of the road or whatever, like that's what he's talking about, like getting that opportunity. And definitely that happens in warfare. You're picking up things. So I'm thinking about this. How does that relate to jiu-jitsu? And I think it has to do like going to a tournament, going to compete, whether it's a tournament or not, and you learn something, and oftentimes it's the hard way. You get caught in that guillotine or that heel hook, and he says it's a 20-to-1 ratio. That cart is worth 20 of your own. Like, it's that important to be able to get that. I think that's 20 to 1 as well. Like, getting caught with a heel hook in a tournament, you'll learn 20 times more than if you get caught with that same heel hook by your teammate at home. Any thoughts on that one, guys?
Well,
that's a tough one.
I
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, I agree with what Byron's saying, but I also was thinking about, like, something I work really hard to get in a match. My opponent's not giving it to me. There's some value in that, but is there more value in exploit, like when you can goad them into giving you something? Like, they think they're getting the takedown, but you immediately sweep them and get a dominant position. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm spinning my wheels here a little bit.
I like that.
I'm thinking like if two guys both want the takedown and you're really working really hard for it, one guy's going to end up getting it, and it's just a takedown. But if my opponent's working really, really, really hard for a takedown, and then I end up sweeping him in the middle of the takedown or catching a submission in it, like he goes for a takedown and I catch a submission because of his takedown, that's way more valuable, I think. That's just my guess.
Well, no, a submission is way more valuable than a takedown mathematically.
But what I mean is, to me, it feels more valuable than if I just worked for that submission.
Yeah.
As opposed to I sort of like tricked him into giving it to me.
Yeah, that's a good one there. A different angle at that. That's what's kind of fun about this it's a strategy guide, but you have to also interpret it. And we're, generally speaking, we're not going to war and using this as like literal strategy for war. But how does this strategy work for jiu-jitsu? How would this work for, your work life? How would this translate to, getting a new customer or something like that?
I'm not taking a cart of provisions to Wichita by on foot.
So, Byron, I thought we were okay. I guess what you just said, we're not going to war. So, okay, I've been thinking we were going to war, and we were going to take on the Grappling Central podcast, and I thought that's what you were doing here.
Oh, those guys are in trouble. Aren't there just two of them?
I'm not. Hey, well, you don't know. I'm not going to show up.
Joe, at our age, I'm not even sure if we count as one.
You're right.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. So that's. Let me just scan my notes here.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Paragraph 17 is about chariot fighting.
Oh, what do we got, Joe?
Sure we don't want to do a little chariot fighting?
I've got no notes on that one in particular.
All right.
Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our flags should be substituted for those of the enemies, the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours.
So you're saying that Joe and I should sneak out tonight and try to steal the cars from the Grappling Central podcast?
There you go. Yeah, what is a chariot but a modern day vehicle? Yep. Or a tank? No, what he's advocating for there is when somebody does something. So when 10 or more chariots are taken, the one who took the first one, which I'm guessing is a pretty bold move, not to destroy a chariot, but to hop on that thing and take off. Right? That's different. And that's a bigger, is it better to destroy the enemy's chariot or to take it and put it on your team? Have it on your team is a better move.
Yeah. You take it on your team. You got an extra a resource to use. But then also, man, do you want to mess with some dude who just came into your territory and, hot-wired your chariot and took off? Peeled off down the street?
Yeah, we got to tell you about how chariots work. But yes, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, and he's really advocating reward the first person that did that bold move. And I think that's just giving recognition, for people who work hard. You might have, it's tournament on Saturday, back in class on Monday. Hey, I want to recognize Joe. He had a great tournament. He ended up getting, silver in both his divisions. And also Gary was present and had a couple matches. Good job, guys. Something like that.
I could tell you one thing, Byron. If I got silver in both my divisions, there were only two guys in those divisions.
I was going to say, if Joe or I got silver in a division, it had anything to do with the medal. It was the color of our hair.
There you
go. Yeah, that's so that it kind of chapter 2, and some of this happens in these. They kind of just. Sometimes they kind of meander into stuff like the chariot thing. But really, it's cost-benefit, looking at those things. And when you compare the cost of the benefit of destroying the enemy's chariot versus the benefit of acquiring that chariot, like let's just say you and another person are kind of rivals. Like maybe they're in the other state or across town, and you always meet at the tournament, and you always have a good match, and you've won half of them, they've won half of them. It's a tough thing. But what if they come to your gym and train with you? How much better will you both be if you acquired that chariot and you're training together now?
Awesome, Byron. I love the way you took that. Yeah.
Gary? How awesome was that? Was that internet worthy?
I think you won the internet. I think so.
I really didn't know where you were going with that, and but man, the way you took it, like you said, man, that would be awesome. You would steal the chariot, learn so much more. that way.
Well, thanks, Gary. And train. It's good to think of your competition not as like your enemy, but maybe think of them as a rival. Something who is going to push you to do better. And I think that's a better mindset to have with people who you kind of know you're going to compete with. You know that you're going to bump up against. That's not your enemy. That's just somebody who's pushing you to do your best. And you need that person if you want to be that competitive grappler. You need those people that push you, and you should be happy that they're there.
Well said.
Joe, I will urge you to check your email. You've got a Crayola Get Well card already in there. I want to thank Dolphin for signing up on Patreon and supporting us there. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Man, Byron, you're a hell of an artist. I think you've got another career there if you want to pursue it.
Oh, yeah. So wrapping up the show here. Next month, we're looking at Chapter 3 of The Art of War. Guys?
I'm looking forward to it.
Because I don't remember the time. So do some idle conversation, would you please?
It's attack by stratagem, which I assume is strategy. Yeah, so
that'll be a lot of it. The difference between strategy and stratagem, and that'll be fun. That's one of I really enjoyed that chapter when I was studying it. So we'll dig into that one.
Looking forward to it.
Good times.
So the interesting thing about the Art of War is that it was originally, I guess, all these thoughts were compiled as they related to actual warfare, but it's been applied to business so much. And for those that own a jiu-jitsu school or any kind of jiu-jitsu business, you're sort of in both businesses. You're in the business of doing business, but also in the business of combat. So I can't think of a better book to read, a better podcast to listen to right now than this one.
Good one, Joe. I remember. So there's several stories of Sun Tzu, the person who originally did this text, and his. I hate to. It's hard to talk about this because I don't have it. His country or his region or his state was being attacked by an army 10 times larger than his own, and like, okay, here, this sucks. They're on the way. Like, here comes 10,000 soldiers to your 1,000. And what he did was he sent a small group of soldiers. So I hate to say it because I'm just kind of recalling this from my own memory, so the numbers are going to be off. But he sent just a fraction of the soldiers off to the side, and they attacked like that country's homeland. Boom, real quick, real fast. They had sent all their soldiers to attack them. Sun Tzu sent his small batch on the side, and they attacked their homeland. And they freaked out, and they sent them all back to defend what really was nothing. Like, he always was being much more clever than his opponents. He wasn't from a physically dominant state. His state was small. They didn't have the biggest army, but they did really well with what they had, and they did that with stratagem and strategy and looking at the cost of if we want to attack this place or not attack this place. If I go and attack Gary's house, does that leave open for Joe's house to come in and knock mine over, or whatever? Like all these things were things he was really good at doing and thinking about, and that's what came about this book. He's a fascinating person.
That's old man jiu-jitsu right there. It really is.
It is.
Being more clever, more smart, more underhanded, and I mean.
Yeah, we're getting old.
Yeah, we
gotta claim it.
Yeah.
Guys, I enjoyed recording with you as usual, and getting closer to my Kimura episode. Don't know when it's coming out, but it's getting a lot closer.
Awesome.
I'll be excited to release that soon, hopefully.
You going to release it on Netflix?
I have not yet worked out the details on that one, Gary.
Okay.
I know I'm going to release that on the podcast. Is the main thing.
Sweet.
So where you're listening to this now, you can hear it later.
Do you need an agent?
Sure.
I hope you find one then.
Oh, cold-blooded. Well, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, train as often as you can, and get better, guys. We'll see you on the mats.
Train as often as the cost of training benefits you the most.
That's what I was trying to say, Byron. Thank you so much. You know, find that optimum balance and live that truth.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can visit our website at BjjBrick.com for more good times. Swing by and like our Facebook page. Our email is bjjbrick@gmail.com.